Do you handle disappointment well, or do you let it rock your whole entire world? Let's talk about it. Welcome to another episode of 50 Shades of Shilamida with your hostess, Shilamida. Today happens to be my birthday. I am 44 years young today. My children made me the most beautiful t-shirt. For those of you listening on podcast stations, you can hop on over to YouTube and take a look. But it's been an amazing day so far. This weekend, I threw myself the bat mitzvah I never had. I do this every year. I throw a massive theme party in the middle of the summer, and I am very specific in my rules of dress code. If you do not come dressed in theme, you don't get invited to next year's party. And I am like a stickler with this. I still have friends who are very upset with me that they don't get invited anymore, but you get a chance to step out of your comfort zone and really get pushed to the edge. And that is what I love to do because people need to loosen up. And one of the things that happens during birthday time is disappointment, right? And so I thought that we could talk about it today because I've had to have a lot of growth through disappointment in my life. I've had a lot of my expansion happen in the moments of disappointment. And because of my birthday, there a lot of the things stem around that. So as a child growing up, I loved birthdays. I loved celebrating. I loved doing the things. My mom was not a big decorator. I do recall having a party with a clown when I was little and one at Burger King, but I don't really remember parties. I did not have a bat mitzvah. I never went to Hebrew school when I was a kid. My parents didn't have enough money to send us both, so they sent my brother instead of me. And then for my sweet 16, I ended up having a sweet 16, but like, if you see my parties now, I actually wanted like a MTV Super Sweet 16. So we didn't have the money to do that, nor did my family have the wanting to do anything like that. And so at some point in my younger years, I made the declaration that when I got older, I was going to manifest the biggest backyard with the most beautiful house so that I can have the best parties ever. And so here we are. I have actually manifested that. And so many years ago, I hosted a fiesta. And in hosting the fiesta, I spent the entire week with everybody in my house making paper flowers so that we could decorate my entire yard. And I always do like an entranceway. And so the day of the party, the weather turned to rain, and we were not prepared for rain. I had, I think, two kids under 2 or 2 kids under 3 at the time, and my house was a disaster. Like there was no bringing the party indoors. And right before the party, I was garbage bagging all of the flowers, anticipating the rain. And as soon as the party was supposed to start, it started downpouring. And I had the biggest meltdown of my life. And so in having the biggest meltdown of my life, as people were walking into my house, it was not cute at all. And in that moment, I had to have a talk with myself, and I had to really talk about this disappointment and how it affects everybody. It's really interesting. When I was in acupuncture school, I used to have this one friend who would say to me that my mood ruled the entire group. And I didn't really understand it then, but during acupuncture school were some of the hardest years of my life. I was a single mom on food stamps trying to put myself through this program. And, I would have situations where I wouldn't have enough money to pay for my rent, and life was really hard. And so some days I would walk into school and I would be a disaster. And my energy would carry the energy of everybody else. When I'm happy, everybody's happy. But if I'm not happy, everybody is not happy. And it's pretty wild that I understand this energy now. And so every year since that year, I've had to work on my stress levels with event planning and throwing parties. And, every time I throw a party, someone says to me, wow, you really should be a party planner. And the funny thing is that I used to be a party planner. I used to have a company called Extravagant Events, and I did parties and weddings and high-end bar mitzvahs. And it's when I got into the high-end bar mitzvahs that I decided that it was time for me to stop, because people were very hyper-focused on all the wrong things. And I just felt like I wasn't using my skill set properly, that I was supposed to be making a difference in the world. And me decorating parties wasn't doing that. Now, when I throw a party at this point in my life, I do feel like I'm making a difference in the world, because I bring so much joy and so much fun and so much hope and so much possibility to the people that show up here, that energy carries through to the rest of the world. But the reason why I stopped being an event planner was because the events are always on the weekends. And so anytime there was a family event, I was working. I used to have massive anxiety. Like, what if the DJ didn't show up on time? What if the photographer didn't show up at all? Right. And so I had a lot of sleepless nights worrying about things. And interestingly enough, none of those things happened when I was an event planner. But since I've been throwing these massive parties, a lot of these things have happened to me and manifested in my actual life. Like my first birthday party for my son, Brady, the DJ never showed up, right? So disappointment, what did I do in that moment of disappointment? I panic, right? Like you panic. And what has happened over the years is that I've realized in party planning, right? Like this is going to apply differently to other parts of your life, but in party planning, nobody actually knows my vision. And actually, in a lot of parts of life, nobody really knows our vision, right? And what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to do. And so I would get so upset because my vision wasn't carried through, right? But even with the mishap of no DJ, or even with the mishap of torrential downpour and rain, or even of the mishap of whatever the mishap might be, there's always recovery and there's always fun and there's always a good time. And it's really not that big of a deal, right? Like in the moment, it feels like the worst thing in the world. Like I'm throwing a party and the DJ didn't show up, but my brother ran home, he grabbed a speaker, we threw on a playlist, and guess what? It was totally fine. And it wasn't that big of a deal, right? But when we're living through the moment and it's so big, right? So for my wedding, for instance, I got tested to the max. It, of course, downpoured. This is like the story of my parties now. I'm going to try to re-script this and try to remanifest it so we have sunshine days for the parties from here on out. But for the wedding day, it rained. My glam team showed up late. My photographer was, I don't know, the flower people messed up my whole flower thing. And so I was trying to be zen and I was breathing through the whole thing. And then my first look was totally messed up because of the rain. We couldn't use the balcony. And because it was raining, there wasn't a lot of places in the hotel to actually take pictures for the party. So the venue was late on setting everything up and it was a whirlwind of shit. And so after the first look, when I saw that the flowers came in, like everything was just like wrong. Like there was fire hazards of like cylinders with fire. And then I lost it for like a minute. It was more like maybe 10 minutes, but like I had like a 1 minute freak out and then I pulled it together. Right. And in my freak out, it freaked out everybody, right? It like whirlwinded everybody because nobody knew what to do. And up until that moment, when I was zen, everybody else was zen, right? And so I needed to have the freak out because I needed to release the energy. I'm an emotional projector and like I need to ride the wave of the emotion. Otherwise, it's like, right? So we have to know and understand how we operate and how we tick and how we can move through the moment, the disappointment, move through it a little bit quicker, right? All of these things, they're trained. all of these things are changeable. All of these things are reprogrammed, right? So if you're like the freak out kind of person, like you don't have to be the freak out kind of person for life. Like that was me. I was the freak out person, but that wasn't doing anything in my life, but creating more chaos, right? And so we have to know and understand that wherever we are on our emotional intelligence level, there's room for improvement, right? So this year, for the very first time, I was super set up to have my party inside, but I still decorated outside, and it torrential downpoured when we were about to get ready, and I was in full glam outside trying to save the thing. And you know what? We laughed because at this point it's like it's the universe is doing it to test me, and I recover, and it's always okay. So my wisdom for you today is that disappointment is going to happen. There's no question. We're here to be disappointed. We're here to feel the feelings of sadness and anger and not good feelings, so that when we experience joy, when we experience happiness, when we experience love, when we experience gratitude, it's the most magical, beautiful, loving feeling that we can have, right? And so we wouldn't be able to feel good without knowing what it's like to feel bad. And so moments of disappointment, moments of fear, moments of anger, they're going to come into our lives. But they're coming into our lives to test us, to see how much can you handle. Are you able to handle this moment? Because if you are, I'm going to give you more, because you're asking for more and I want to give you more. But are you able to handle the more, right? So just remember that, especially those of you who are manifesting lots of money, big houses, vacations, private jets, all the things, right? The bigger the thing, the more money it requires, the more expansion you are required to handle, right? So when you see people living these magnificent lives, know and understand that behind the scenes of all the things that you're seeing are big, hard things that they're overcoming quickly, which is why they're being rewarded, right? Some people are living this life rewarded just because that's the way that their life was manifested, right? And they were more born into a lot of money and they are able to live magnificent lives, but that doesn't mean that they're happy inside, right? When you see somebody who's genuinely happy, who has all the things, who's doing all the things, it's because they're doing the work, right? They're being disappointed and they're working through those feelings so that the next time the disappointment hits, it doesn't hit as deep and it's not as hard. So I just want to keep reminding you guys, because I know that the social media scroll and the perception of what we're seeing seems to be like nobody has any problems but me, right? But that's not the truth. And that's not what reality shows us, right? And whatever you're going through, you're able to rewrite the story. You are the co-creator of your life. You literally are the author. That's why I'm living the life that I'm living. Every single thing that you see now is a manifestation. I'm grateful for my backyard. I'm grateful that I have the most beautiful backyard that I throw the most epic parties in. I'm grateful that I'm able to throw the most amazing parties. I'm grateful for attention to detail. I'm grateful for fun. I'm grateful for laughter. I'm grateful for excitement. I'm grateful for creative moments that lead into magical bliss. I mean, these are the things that are actually written down inside of my journals. So just know that this is the work, right? The work is to create the life that you desire. You have to think it in order for it to manifest into real life. So if you're living a crappy life right now, it's because that's what you're thinking. That's what you're focusing on. You're focusing on the bad. You're focusing on the negative. You're focusing on the anger, the sadness, and therefore you're manifesting more. Instead of taking the bad moment and finding the gratitude, instead of taking the person that you're angry with and finding radical forgiveness fast, right? It's just a shift. And this is me. I am your evidence. I was sitting on food stamps at my birthday 13 years ago, wondering how I was going to eat my next meal. And here I am throwing the most epic parties with my own podcast show, with all these appearances, with all the things, right? So anything is possible in this life. And that is my wisdom for my 44th year, my very first day. And I'm super excited for what this year is going to bring. If you love the show, please comment below. Let me know that you are here so that I can say hello to you and welcome you into my world. If you're new here, I love hanging out on social media. You can find me on Instagram at 50 Shades of Shilamida. You can also find me on Facebook at Shilamida Cooperstein. My husband asked me why I didn't change my last name yet on Facebook. So we're going to work on that project this week. So if you're catching this and you can't find Cooperstein, my new last name is Friedman. I also hang out on Pinterest. I love you guys. My website is www.shilamida.com. There is no E in my name. It's Shilamida. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you love the show, go back and binge on some more. There's lots of episodes to watch. If you're on a podcast station listening, you can go watch the show on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can always listen to the show on your favorite podcast station. Thanks so much for joining me. I love you. Bye.